Yeah.
Yeah, no, I did.
All right, guys, ready?
I'm still waiting for him.
Nick,
Right,
Jeannie?
it was a different reason.
We're on.
You guys ready?
We're ready.
All right, welcome everybody. I've lost count, but this is the charter review and
Getting closer
revision
to the other
advisory
side.
board. See the light at the end of the tunnel? Still know if it's a train or not. Welcome, you wanna take the roll?
Yes, sir, Mr. Van. Present. Ms. Basner.
Yeah.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Here.
Mr. Tony.
Sure.
Stan.
Here.
Yeah, okay. And Mr. Sharkey. And you have a full board.
Excellent. Okay, welcome everybody. First item is the minutes. Anybody want to make a motion?
Would we approve?
Moved by Sam,
Second.
second by Michael. All in favor?
I'm sorry, what?
Any opposed? Nay?
Oh,
Okay.
there was some revisions?
We made some edits to the minutes, really for clarity. They were not
Yeah.
substantive, but we just
They were not substantive, so maybe the board would approve them subject to our including those.
do have them there.
I have them here, I just, no one had told me.
Knows what it is.
We were
Oh, I-
blindly not seeing them, you want us to approve them, huh?
Well, you can either.
That's a lot of trust.
Or do you
can look
wanna,
them
or you wanna
or-
just approve these at the next meeting and just get decided?
You can do that
Okay,
too.
yeah.
That's
Do
fine.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's rescind this vote and we'll just approve them at the next meeting and
Okay.
we have a chance to review this. Okay, so.
The stuff that's yellowed is what you changed or added?
The
No,
stuff that's
the-
yellow,
No,
the edits are, you know, we'll do for the next meeting.
We'll look at it. We'll
Present
bring it
you
back.
red line.
Red line.
We'll red line.
Okay.
I mean, this is.
What is different? Is it the yellow? Is it the yellow that's still
The
there?
yellow is what's revised, but it's revised in the comments.
Revised in the comments.
I don't know how they print it, because I
All I see is yellow highlights.
oh, you know what? Yeah, then they
Oh,
did.
so the yellow
The
is the
mark.
new language that we added
never
in?
been told.
No,
Well,
the,
we did this.
I'm completely surprised.
okay.
Okay.
About-
Yeah, let's just
bring it back
defer.
to the next meeting.
Yeah.
Make sure these are. Okay, so item one is deferred.
No, they're not, the comments are not printed, not great. So anyway, we'll bring them back.
Yeah.
We'll bring them back.
For next year?
Okay, so item two is, we have a bunch of items that are hopefully ready for, final.
Yes.
Yes.
Why don't we start with number two, which is
Right.
the, I guess, form of election and the election date and all that stuff? Who's gonna present, Nick or?
Oh.
Jane's gonna present this one.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So pursuant to the last meeting, where the board gave direction as to the type of changes that the board would recommend to the city commission or would consider recommending to the city commission. The idea basically was changing the election dates and changing the method of the election. I do just want to say again, I know we had a previous discussion at several meetings back that pursuant to state law, the city commission is permitted to change election dates and qualifying dates and changes in terms necessitated by the change of election dates. The city commission is permitted to make those changes by ordinance, even though the language is in the charter. But many municipalities, despite the fact that they are permitted to do that by ordinance, nonetheless have presented those type of changes out to the voters. But that is an option for the city commission. So what you have in front of you on the agenda number two is the draft ballot question in the draft text, incorporating the change of election dates and the change of the election, whereby there would be a special, excuse me, not special. There would be a general election just for the election of the mayor, the first Tuesday in October. With the majority, based upon the current system that we have now, where majority winner is the elected candidate. If there is no candidate who has received a majority, then the top two highest vote getters but go to the runoff. Now, under this scenario, the runoff for the mayor would be the first Tuesday in November, which under this proposal would be the date of the general election for the city commissioners. The city commissioners, however, unlike the present system, which is majority vote, would be subject to a plurality vote, meaning the highest vote getter equal to the number of vacant seats would win that election. there would be an elimination of any runoff for city commissioners. So that is the change of election date, and that is the change of the election method that is in front of you. I just want to, if I may, Ron, just say this. Pardon me for 1 second. In order to make this a comprehensive amendment in reviewing the charter text, we also felt that and there also is a reference to the change of the qualifying date. Right now, again, we have the general election the first Tuesday in November and the runoff 2 weeks later. So pursuant to the city charter, the qualifying date has always been in September. Under this scenario, we recommend that the qualifying date would have to be changed from September to August, and it would be the same 4-day period. We have also added, again, in order to make this comprehensive, we've cleaned up some language to make it more clear. We refer to it as syntax, and we also established provisions regarding installment, meaning installment provisions pertaining to newly elected members of the commission. That way it's very clear. And also provisions consistent with state law governing unopposed candidates concerning qualifying. And also there is a candidate vacancy related language in section 604 of the charter that I thought, quite frankly, that was a good opportunity to put this in because it's all thematically, it follows within the same type of subject matter. So that is what you have in front of you.
Yeah. So, don't think you mentioned this, but, before saying that we're recommending the plurality vote, I think that is really contingent on changing the structure so that we wouldn't have what they call seats or
Groups.
Right.
groups. So,
Right.
so I think it's important to say elimination of the groups and
Yes,
then plurality,
I-
because otherwise you've got.
it's all of, you're absolutely right, Ron. And within the text, you'll see that one of the deletions is, because right now it says city commissioners, and this is within paragraph 1 of the
Yeah, I
text.
think
you'll
Ron, what
see-
you're talking about is you want it in the question.
Yeah, I
But
want,
then the
I think
text
we need
says
to.
it.
Well,
Question.
Because.
It says
It says-
that they all run.
Yeah, but I think what's not clear, see, I would,
From required,
as a voter, I wouldn't be in support of this if we still had those separate seats and then it was a majority, because with 4 or 5 people running, you could end up with.
yeah, it's basically,
No seats.
yeah,
right.
but I
It's
think
not.
bullet 1 should reference that it's no more groups,
Right,
elimination of groups.
Well,
I think we.
you know,
did
I
that.
think we
think
say
did.
that. I
It's
think
struck
we say
already.
that.
In the, no,
Changing-
but
No,
again,
no,
again, in the ballot question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
take a look at the first bullet point of the ballot question.
It
yeah,
doesn't
I
say
don't know, but you're
eliminate the
saying
groups.
among all candidates establishing, I think you need to you need to say
Explicit.
specifically that,
Election by group.
elimination of groups
Election by
and.
group, yeah. And
Okay.
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Keep in mind, we have 75 words,
No, I know.
but certainly we need to inform and not mislead the voters.
Yeah,
I think,
We'd have to-
Ron's right, because it
Yeah, let me.
otherwise just implies
here.
you're still gonna have the groups, but now it's not a majority.
Yeah.
now it's
Oh,
just-
no, that is not the intent, and that is not.
unless you read it very carefully.
Can you say eliminating groups and therefore commissioner runoff elections, or add that in?
Mhm.
Seems like that would be a good place to add it.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
In the first
Bullet?
bullet point.
Yeah,
If you say changing the method of election commissioners from required majority to largest vote, you could say thereby eliminating groups and therefore, or with commissioner groups and commissioner.
I think you start with eliminate the groups.
Yeah,
Change
yeah,
method
I-
of election
From
to
electing commissioner
eliminate
groups?
by group,
Yes,
to eliminate electing commissioners by group,
and.
and from a required majority to the largest vote getters.
Right, yeah, yeah.
You know,
I don't
it's all
think
about the
exactly. I
75
think you can do it in a
So,
lot fewer words.
uh,
Trying to use less words,
No.
fewer words.
Right,
I,
right,
I think, yeah, I mean, I think you would say elimination of the groups and. Then, as you said, and then and.
And we have at the end of that,
And then
first
we're
bullet,
you know-
the eliminating commissioner
Commissioner
runoff
runoff,
elections.
right.
Yeah, we are,
Yeah,
yeah.
we have.
Yeah,
But
I think it should be.
Yeah, yeah.
Reworded.
That's the
so
main
that it
goal.
can prevent you.
The main thing we're
clarify.
doing is eliminating the group.
Yeah,
That's the first thing.
that's one of the main benefits, so that needs to be earlier.
right,
instead of, and by the way, it eliminates, that changing the method of eliminating runoffs. And eliminating runoff, to eliminate runoffs by.
I think.
But you're not, the fact that you're deleting the groups, it does not result in the elimination of the runoff.
Well.
The fact that you're having the
So-
whole election
Right.
is eliminating
So
the
you're-
runoffs.
Exactly, what you're doing is you're doing block voting,
Yeah.
multi-candidate block voting.
But I didn't
That's
want to
hard
use
to
that
say.
wording because
Right.
the average voter may not
That is,
understand.
that
They're
is
not gonna
eliminating the
know
group.
those.
Right.
They're not gonna know what that is.
Right,
Right,
but you
right.
are gonna eliminate the group.
Right.
And then you're gonna say, and by doing that, you have a required majority, you no longer have a required majority. And it's the largest vote getter and you eliminate the runoff.
Yeah.
Those things follow.
Yeah, maybe don't say eliminate by, just say
Yeah.
eliminate runoffs.
Well-
It's
And,
not
Well-
that though.
How about this? In the first bullet point, changing method of electing commissioners. Deleting, like take out the word from and insert deleting. Deleting required majority vote per commission group. You don't think that's?
No,
I'll say first.
Okay.
eliminating
You were
groups.
gonna say something.
Okay,
I'm trying to write it out.
okay,
so that I
eliminating the
can repeat
groups.
writing.
But you're eliminating the groups and the requirement for majority vote.
Yeah, but say the group first.
Right.
Okay.
I
Yes,
agree.
eliminate the group
Eliminate
first,
the
because
group.
that makes me understand, okay,
Groups.
If you're looking to remove what, I think it's a little unnecessary to say where it says two largest vote getters among all candidates. Could you possibly add it there where you write two largest vote getters? And then remove among all candidates and say eliminate, and then add the piece about eliminating groups so that it's, we know that the largest vote getters are, that's how you're tabulating.
Yeah, I
But
just felt
no.
it was a little more express. To let the voters know, deleting the group, but I understand, you want that amplified a little bit. But it's among all the candidates. Now, I didn't want to say in a pool because the voters may not know
Right.
what that is.
Yeah,
I
but
think
So,
it-
okay,
what-
I
What's
I think our
helpful
language
to
removes-
us is your feedback on, and we can bring back revised
Yeah.
language.
so, yeah,
any other,
maybe you make that a bullet, a standalone bullet. Eliminate election by group.
Well, I
Next
think the
bullet.
two go together, though.
they really
George.
do.
It's eliminating the groups, which now creates a single pool,
Mhm.
and then going to.
The highest vote
Right,
getter.
vote getter. They say, to eliminate
Yeah,
groups,
eliminate
sort of
groups.
as a standalone, somebody might say, why?
I think
Why?
they understand our point and I'm
Yeah,
sure they can.
They can work it.
Yeah,
We
we do,
don't.
right.
Start with the group first, though.
Start with the
Lead
group.
with that, I think is what. I would
Got
say.
it.
Yes.
I had a comment on the text, and you guys have a, I think in the text, it mentions something about drawing lots or if there's a tie with the mayor.
Well, that's the language it's always been, and it's
Okay.
consistent
That's
through other charters that,
That's not my
If-
point, don't worry.
okay,
My point is, we probably have to have the same language if there's a tie between the third and fourth.
Oh. that's a great point. That's a great point. Wait, where is that? Oh, yeah, that's the third, the third paragraph of the text.
Whatever it is, what are you gonna do? Pull a card, whatever, but you need to address if there's a tie between the third and fourth vote getter.
Right,
Yeah.
so where there are 3 open commission seats, which is the normal situation, if the third and fourth, right? Or actually, not just the third and
It
fourth,
could
if
be,
if
look,
there's,
if
if
there's a
there's
tie
a
between
tie-
1, 2, and 3, it's not a big deal, they all come.
right,
in.
that's
It's
right.
really wherever the break
Right.
is, so if there's only 2 seats. then you're
Right.
Unlikely,
Okay,
then you
that's
need
a
to have
great
between
point.
2 and
That's,
3,
let me
so
insert that.
be mindful of the,
Tie.
instead of third and fourth, make it generic, like, the last seat and the next seat after. or something like that.
Although you could have
Yeah.
a situation where 4 and 5 got the same number of votes, so it's really not just between 3 and 4, but
That's my point.
any ties.
Any tie,
Why, if there's 3 commission seats in a normal election cycle, right? So if the top three
He's
vote
saying,
getter.
he's saying if
there's a
third, fourth,
tie
and fifth
between
are all tied.
third,
Oh,
fourth,
fourth and fifth. I thought you said fourth
Yeah,
and
so it's
fifth.
not just
Right.
correcting
Right.
that statement, that it's not just
Right.
third and fourth, it's any.
So yeah, it would be any time.
Any tie for the third seat, or, and it's not even the third seat, it could, if there's four
Could be
seats.
the
that
Right,
year,
it would be
It
for
could be
that
a fourth,
final
so-
seed.
And so it's the
Yeah.
tie for any seat,
Tie.
of the last seat, you're gonna have to figure out
Right,
the legal
tie.
language.
Or final commissions or something, right? Seat.
For the last seat of the election cycle. Yeah.
The final.
Okay, that's in the event of a tie.
You just make sure it's not.
No, because
between
if there
first
is,
and second, it's-
right, just to, so that we all understand. If there is a tie, let's say for the second and the third, it wouldn't matter
Sure.
because the second and third would be the number 2 and 3 winners, right? So it's only the last one.
There's a tie for the
Last
first
seat.
Great
three.
point, yeah.
It's gotta be a
Got it.
tie.
And
on the
by the way,
last
that's
seat.
totally consistent with the way the charter has always been intended, you know.
Right.
Okay,
And you figure out how, whether it's card, flip a coin, draw lots, short straws. Long straws, whatever.
Well, we could throw them in a pit of
Well-
lions and see who comes out.
you know, I,
That's the blood.
Or
yeah.
the- I've seen that happen. Have you ever- Have you ever seen that happen? I've never seen that
That's
happen. Yeah, where they have to draw by lot.
Not here, but yeah.
Yeah.
it's happened.
Yeah.
It's happened.
I've never seen it here, but I would say that's how the
Flip a
county
coin.
charter is. To draw by lot. I know it
We were
sounds.
close, wasn't Commissioner Rosenthal like one vote off from
Yes.
in a recent
Yes.
election? Yeah,
Yeah,
we came close.
All right, so this has gotta be put off to the next meeting, right?
right, but if we could just have consensus that the remainder, because we want to, you know, be
Move on.
moving along, is the remainder okay?
Yes.
I just had one clarification. I didn't understand what you guys were saying about if like. After qualifying, somebody either withdraws or dies or something like that, there's like an additional qualifying period. What is?
Here's the thing. Right now.
604?
Right, right. That language in 604, which is referenced as vacancy and candidacy, was put in, I think in 24, no, way before 2014. It was put in at least 10 years ago. And the reason why it was put in was there was at the time, a newly enacted state statute that required cities to have provisions within either, or if the language of the statute is something in fact either by ordinance or charter provision, to have provision addressing the situation where you have a vacancy in candidacy where, let's say, X amount of candidates have qualified, everything is fine. But then after qualifying ends, as a result of the death, withdrawal, or removal of one of the candidates, you have fewer than 2 candidates left. And pursuant to the state statute that says the city has to address that either in ordinance or charter, this particular section 604 was put in the charter. And yes, George, it does state that there shall be in that event a supplemental qualifying period of X amount of days. However, I will tell you this, right, Ralph, that because Christina White, you remember the election supervisor was here at the last meeting. One of the things that we didn't get into at the last meeting that Christina has let the city clerk know is that pursuant to her authority under the state statute to approve or deny any request of the municipality for special elections. The election supervisor has told us that internally, the elections department needs to have at least 90 to 120 days notice for the city to call any election. As a result of that, Ralph and I went through the charter and we noted whichever sections could be triggered by that may require amendment because we're in the process of doing charter amendment. We will be meeting with the elections department shortly on that. One of the sections that we highlighted for discussion was the 604, because right now it says, which worked at the time this charter section was put in. It said that the supplemental qualifying period of X amount of days shall exist. However, if there is such a vacancy in candidacy, again, due to the death, withdrawal, or removal of a candidate who is qualified, within 45 days prior to the election, you can't have any more supplemental qualifying. And the reason for that was because the elections department needs a deadline date to print a ballot.
Right.
In which case that remaining candidate would be declared elected. And by the way, that's consistent with law.
Okay.
Which says the remaining candidate. So this 604 states that, but I do just want to point something out. If you look at the fifth paragraph of the text that you have in front of you of 201, that language, remember how I alluded to the fact that in order to make this a global comprehensive amendment, that language in the last paragraph also addresses not just where you have vacancy and candidacy after candidates have qualified, but other situations where you have one remaining candidate and they are automatically elected by operation of law. And again, that's consistent with state law. But we felt, and I want to let you know, that's how, correct, Ralph, the city attorney's office, the city clerk's office has always interpreted existing law, and there is citation of authority for that. But we felt, you know what, as long as we're doing this, let's make this really express within the charter. So that's what.
But Jane, if we're electing no longer by group, and
Right.
there's always gonna be an election.
Well, here, if the language, the way I tweaked that was I say,
Even, well, I guess if there were.
Unless if you
3
had
seats and 3 unopposed people.
3 seats and 3 unopposed.
right,
That's how this all works.
But you're not, maybe I'm unclear. Are you running for an individual seat? Because there are no
No.
more individual seats.
no, there are no more individual seats.
But
So,
there-
So what
so what you're saying is,
You have
if
3
there's three
candidates and 3
candidates
seats.
and there's not a fourth, there is no election, they
Correct.
all won.
Correct. Correct.
Right, and so this language needs to be changed from fewer than 2 candidates to fewer than 3 candidates. 604.
Where are you looking?
604.
Oh, 604 is different.
Oh.
604 is different. 604 is what I was just speaking of, that was enacted pursuant to that state statute requirement. 604 is a different scenario. 604 is the scenario where you had enough candidates and they all qualified. And in our situation, it doesn't, you had, let's say there were 3 city commission seats up for general election and you had 4. So you continuing with the election. What this says, 604, is that, let's just say it's a normal election cycle, 3 commission seats are up for election and you have 4 candidates. So you continue with the election. Sometime after qualifying, 3 of them are either, God forbid, they withdraw from office, they're not here anymore for whatever reason. So it leaves fewer than 2 candidates. In that limited example, the city will have supplemental qualifying. But again, because supplemental qualifying has to end at a certain date.
Right, but Gene, I think
Gene, it's
that's
fewer
what
than
I
2
understood it.
or-
My point is that it's no longer 2, it's 3, because you have 3 seats to fill.
Ron, it's fewer than
Unless you
2,
wanna leave 1 vacant,
it's fewer than 2
Well-
for mayor or fewer than 3 for commissioners, how we draft
so
it.
fewer than remaining on the general or the
Yeah,
mayor.
keep
fewer
reading the next
candidates
line.
than there are seats. Oh, I see, fewer candidates than there are seats.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
that's
it. See, and here's the thing, again, 604 is a different scenario. The point of 604 was the legislature wanted to make sure there was some element
So
of
if after-
competition.
So after, let's say you had the necessary number with qualifying, but then before the election, let's say you had four candidates and 1 dies.
Wait, you're talking about commission?
Yeah, for commission.
Right.
Or 3. Does it then revert to the filling the vacancy part of the ordinance? Or what
Wait.
happens with that
If that,
vacancy?
I guess if that were to happen
Where you
within
had,
45 days of the election, where you're
Well,
saying.
wait,
it's-
are you talking about, you had 3 commission seats under this scenario?
Right,
You have 4 candidates, right?
right.
And if you have 4 candidates, the election continues.
Continue.
If under this, you have 3 of them drop out and it only
Let's just
leaves,
use 2, so 2 get
You
elected,
hope
and then
2 of
there's
them
1
drop
vacant
out?
seat.
then you don't have supplemental qualifying and those
Right.
2 are elected?
Right, and then the
And then you have
third
a
seat
vacant
gets
seat.
appointed by vacancy.
That's right,
That's
that's
what- that
right,
was my question.
that's right. The 3rd seat is
Thank you.
considered a vacancy. And again, and I want to point something out too. First of all, it's never happened on Miami Beach because we usually have a plethora of candidates, but you never know. You never know. But secondly, for whatever it's worth, the county charter has the same language with regards to if there is a lack of candidate qualifying, if the candidate is not
Yeah,
qualified, and
approach
that
it.
scenario, you're right, that would be the same. Then there is vacancy. However, I do just want to point this out. Maybe we don't need to get into a great discussion now about that. But in terms of how would that work, it would work as a vacancy under 207, which you see. But we would have to wait for the vacancy to have occurred. And the vacancy would occur after the election,
After the
right? That's how it works.
Yeah, okay, just want to make sure that
Right.
that's.
Okay, so
Okay.
you know what we want on this.
Right, but can the board just give us some consensus? You're all okay with the remainder of it, so we
Lead
can
with,
focus on that.
lead
Yeah.
with
I don't think we need to see the exact language, but I think in concept, this is what we want.
Okay. So it's tweaking the ballot question to make clear that we are deleting these, the board is deleting the city commission groups. And that language about the tie in the 1, 2,
Yes.
3, the third paragraph of the text, okay.
Just fill out the
It's very clear.
Yeah,
That's what I was
interesting discussion. Well, the original reaction may be negative, but then maybe if they think about it a little more.
Think about it, like,
You know, I think it's something we're gonna have to maybe meet one-on-one
Yep.
with them in advance.
You mean the
not-
city
Oh,
commission?
yeah,
City commission, Not just hit it with it and let them.
Because they all have their
Right, you'd
little,
have to.
their little
meet one-on-one
geographic
to
areas
discuss
marked.
it.
they're gonna look at it in the light of how does it affect me?
Of course, and they're gonna say, wait a minute, this is diluting my little fiefdom.
Or it makes it easier, who knows?
Or it makes it easier.
You know, if I may, I just want to point one other thing out. I know we discussed early on that charter amendments for municipal charters are not subject or not bound by single subject rule. And because of that, cities in Miami-Dade County that are now bound by the single subject rule with regards to charter amendment may, if they choose, bundle issues within a ballot question. This board has taken great care to ensure that whatever multiple items have been bundled in ballot questions such as this and such as the 207 ballot question that you already approved dealing with vacancy and candidacy, and such as the remaining ballot questions that we'll be looking at and hopefully approving today. The board is taking great care to ensure that the bundled amendments all deal with similar subjects and relate thematically to the same terms. So despite the fact that you're not bound by the subject rule, and just by way of example, as we spoke of with regards to this one, all of these bullet points deal with the election dates and related matters, method of election, the 207 vacancy that you already approved, all deals with 207. The 202 compensation deals with the compensation as well as the related issue of requiring ethics opinions, which relates to the idea of compensation. I know we're going to get to that in a moment, but that's important to recognize. And the other thing that we just want to emphasize in the record, because the voters are listening to this meeting, is every vote that the board has taken has been subsequent to opportunity for the board to attend and to participate in discussion. Because it's not just informing the voters of these multiple of these bundled items within ballot questions, which again, legally you're permitted to do, but it's affording them opportunities so that they can voice their opinions as to whether or not they feel these items accurately reflect and give them an understanding of what they are. So there haven't been many people attending. Presumably, there's a lot of people watching, and I know Ralph, right, they have the abilities to participate
Minutes
by
are
Zoom.
pretty clear in all that we've done, so.
Absolutely. And again, that's all occurred after your vote. So, okay, thank
The
you.
next item is the
202.
wages, though, compensation.
202 com. I have one little amendment that I just wanted to state for the record. So now we're on section 202, the compensation question. Under the text, the draft amended text, the same way the ballot question expressly states that the sole total annual compensation includes all city earnings, that should be included in the text too. So if the board would just approve a little tweak that I'm recommending, under the text, the first paragraph, where it says the sum total annual compensation, including the words paren, including all city earnings,
Is,
and that would follow.
that goes to
For the
the comment I had on this one, that is. I wanna make it clear that by doing this, we're saying you can't. Then go and give yourselves an expense account or some other. Fringe benefit of sort. That this is, you know, we're basically, as I understand this, that this question does is it takes. All of what has been done historically. Salary plus all of the allowances and so forth, and say, okay, we're gonna say. Wipe them all into a total compensation number, gonna give it a raise.
Excluding pension and health
And
insurance.
and gonna give it a raise. And we're saying that that's your salary in total. You can't then go and
Spend it however you like.
spend it however you like, exactly. But then don't go along and say, now I'm gonna get another car allowance, another cell phone allowance, another expense account, another something else. That those are all kind of prohibited.
Well, we use the word earnings. We felt that was a global term,
Can a city employee be on the city commission?
not simultaneously. You cannot be an employee and be a city elected official. You're not
All right, so
permitted
that-
by
'cause
state
that-
law.
Otherwise, your language wouldn't work. You could.
Right, but you're not permitted
It's not
anyway
permissible, okay.
by law.
Because one of the things we were accomplishing here is to kind of taking away that implied power that they've used.
Doesn't the language, George, suggest that the sole total annual compensation?
Including all
That's right.
earnings.
What?
It does for me. I just want to make sure that both, if you want to write it clear in the text, then
But here's a,
That's what Jean's suggesting, is just, is to add after the word compensation, just to be clear that this is everything.
She wanted to-
including all city earnings.
understood. Does that mean expense or should we even be more explicit and say, you know, and prohibit or disallow any future expense or other account of sorts?
I
Um,
think
In the
that's,
in the
I think
text.
that's clear. I think that's clear.
Okay.
Sole total annual compensation, including all city earnings.
Well, city earnings,
Not,
no, I don't think so, because
Expense
there's a
account,
difference
right?
between
right.
your earnings and
Earnings.
reimbursable expenses.
That's right. I agree
Right,
with
now-
that.
The reimbursable
I
expenses
agree,
are our earnings, and, you know, for tax purposes, you know, they wouldn't be considered earnings.
So I think.
But
that should
when
be
you
said- that should be
consider
stated.
reimbursable an earning, you consider reimbursable.
So right now, they
earnings?
get a lump sum for like phone and taxes and all that. I believe that's taxable.
Yes,
Because it's not, and the reason is, but if you had a different process, if you had them submitting expense accounts and if they had specific expenses that were tied to what they're doing, you know, then they wouldn't be taxed.
if they have an office expense, like if they were to go out and buy a piece of furniture for their office, for their
That's,
city
uh,
office.
I don't see that
And the
as.
city were to
what we're talking
reimburse
about
them for
here.
that, that's not,
I don't see that. I agree. I don't think that should be included in that.
yeah, that's not an earning.
No, and but what we're saying is this doesn't close the loophole entirely, because you could on top of this establish. Expense accounts that they would have, that they could do, which would be whatever reimbursable expenses, which for specific. Reimbursed expenses that they could reimburse, unless you don't care about that still being.
Well, the only problem, Ron, is, though I agree with your sentiment, is they get sent to the mayor's conference. Does that mean it comes out of his pocket as mayor?
Should not.
No.
I didn't pay it directly.
But that's,
I think the
Well-
city should have a budget line item for that kind of travel and training and so forth in their budget. It's, what do they use their expense account
These
for
are,
now?
these are items that you're talking about would be in an office budget. These
Right.
aren't these aren't their personal earnings.
Right.
They're not, you know, if
So
the
what's
city
in
sends
their
them.
expense
Well, why
account
not,
today?
they have a car allowance,
They have a car.
That's
allowance.
different,
That for
though.
sure, they should be able
and
to.
is that gonna be eliminated?
Well, it would be
It's
included in
intended.
this amount. It
In
would-
this amount,
yeah.
It's intended here.
So,
Or should we stipulate that?
Yeah, well, unless you're okay with, you know, because maybe not that they get mileage, for example, for actual.
I don't know.
But that's
I
a
don't-
reimbursable, that's
a
like
travel.
that's a classic reimbursable work
Right,
expense.
right, so I'm just saying.
Well, you're not supposed to
that
get
we're not gonna
mileage if you're
close
on
that
call.
option for them, it's just that they can't get a undefined, just a lump sum. Per
You wanna
diem.
bring up, aren't they talking about adding some today?
Yeah, so if you want, I can brief you, I
Here
can brief
with,
you on
uh,
that, I
current-
have an update, so. Is this the time?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is.
Okay, there's an item on the city commission agenda for this coming Wednesday. It's item R9, if anyone wants to follow it. But the city commission is going to be meeting in a committee of the whole at lunchtime to consider possible increases to the stipend, the vehicle allowance, and the cell phone allowances,
Stipend, vehicle allowance in Richmond and telephone?
and the cell phone allowance.
So,
And whose item is that?
Well, the item has been placed as it's an R9 discussion item, and it's a summary of requests that have been received from various commissioners.
Nobody put their name to it though.
right. Are they aware that we're gonna be proposing something for the charter?
At least a few of them are aware that the Charter Review Board has been looking closely and thoughtfully at this issue.
And a few of them, so.
Because if that's the
And are they
case,
concerned
that-
we're liable to cut them? Is that why they're doing it?
well, if that's the case, then the present $60,000 amount that we have might need to be tweaked depending
Well,
upon
it
what.
depends if the group wants to do that or not. What
And-
is you said that you have a total, don't you?
So the memo, and Ralph, I think you brought copies of the memos, right? But the memo at the bottom has and again, this is all subject to discussion, so there's no final number.
Right.
But if the commission were to approve all of the adjustments that they could approve, it would be an increase of $1,650 a month for each member of the commission.
Increasing from, what is it now?
Approximately, do we have
Is
40?
it like 6,000?
No. 6,000 is the salary.
Is that for the mayor?
6,000 is, let's do this, I'll do this. If you take, we have what, our total here is 41,000, right, for a commissioner?
For commission.
And so it's 35,000. And that's not, once you subtract the wages, so it's about almost 3,000, 2,900 per month. And this will add another 1,600.
Oh, here it is, right in here.
50 a month.
The city charge have a salary of 10,000 for the mayor and 6,000 for city commissioners. The monthly stipend for the mayor is 2,000. Stipend has not been adjusted in approximately 18 years.
Do they know that we're doing this, that
Yeah.
we're investing in the charter?
Included within the 40.
I mean, again,
That's how we.
At least a few I don't know what each of them knows, right, but at least a few of them are aware that this item has been, thoughtfully studied by this board.
So listen,
It's the process to me, I'm really baffled by, this is. They are conducting this whole meeting and they are proposing something that they will ultimately approve, and then they get to approve what was
their expenses
proposed.
and their.
I mean,
Question is,
what?
the question is,
your-
how bad of a look is that? That's your question.
Yeah.
Number one,
Right.
and what my purpose of my initial meeting is. What, I wanna make sure that in our effort here, we prevent that from happening. Going
Yeah.
forward.
Well, we can't prevent them from having a bad look.
No,
I
but
mean,
if
they
we
do
say you
respect
can't give
some
yourself
of
a
the
cell allowance and a car allowance and an expense account that is. Like what they have
Do you say
today,
this this meeting will not be held in the commission chambers then? It will not, but will it be open to the public? It has to be,
Yes.
right?
No, it has-
But will it be in the commission chambers during lunch?
Well, we're still in the convention center.
I was planning on attending, so
We're still in the convention center because of the renovations to the chambers. I believe the committee of the whole is either let me see what it says. If it's in the same room or if it's in the room, regardless, the meeting is open to the public. They can only discuss
Sure.
these issues in the sunshine. So-
Right, but to do it in another room, to me, is adds another layer of,
Ick?
ick to it, right?
I mean, that's the word.
It does not say, it does not say where it's gonna take place. It just says held during the noon recess the city commission meeting on January 31st. But interestingly, it doesn't say where.
Yeah, so why the noon recess? Why not just a discussion item on the agenda?
We're not gonna be able to resolve what the city.
No.
Yeah, that, listen, they're gonna do what they're gonna do,
Right.
but we need to, if we, and I thought the kind of the gist of what we were proposing was to, take away that authority by saying this is total earnings and it's sole and it's nothing more, and unless it comes back to referendum at a future charter review or elsewhere, that's it.
So,
It's-
but,
Sorry. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
No, I mean, I'm trying to understand how several have said we want a salary. But I guess they want their salary plus the everything else too.
Well, they have a salary.
Well, the
No, but
sal-
I mean, they want their salary increase, excuse me. I'm just, I mean, it just feels.
My question really is just a bigger picture question. How is this permissible? I don't understand. Do we not have something in the charter
Legal,
that?
the charter,
they-
the charter's been interpreted as salary means the salary, so that remains unchanged at
I'm talking
6,000.
more about this process.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It doesn't, whatever the process is, it's not that's outside of our scope.
Is it?
But yeah, I think it is.
Well,
I don't think we
is
can
that-
sit here and dictate to the commission what they
At
do.
this, not about this specifically, I mean, but going forward, I just,
I think all we can do
What else
is
can they do?
recommend charter revisions, but I don't think we can weigh in on what the city commission's doing.
Well,
Yeah,
that's-
that's
they can reject our
Am I wrong?
recommendation.
I mean, I think if
That's
the
not
board,
specific.
and this is totally your call, right? But if the board wanted to make a recommendation to the city commission in light of the extensive discussions you all have had, working with us, and if you wanted to make a recommendation on that, could.
What is like an informal recommendation before their meeting on the 31st? Yes,
You
tomorrow?
could, like, you could make a motion transmitting a recommendation to the commission on.
Well, but we don't even have a final
Yeah.
proposal yet. I think, I mean, if we did anything, it would be something like, we just want the commission to know that
That
we,
we're
for
working.
the last 3 months, have been working on a proposal to increase salary, and
Increase
Level
compensation.
increase compensation, total
compensation.
compensation, and we would hope that you would defer
and
your
would
action.
Encourage and urge them to wait.
To defer, wait until we
Wait,
present.
yeah,
Refer that to us. They've
Yeah,
done that before.
yeah,
They've
urge
sent
them.
stuff our way.
yeah, or to
I mean,
wait
they want-
until the charter review board
Is
has
that-
had the opportunity to present its proposal.
Is that something that would be appropriate?
Yeah.
Nick?
Absolutely.
Yes?
If you
Appropriate?
recall, you could transmit that recommendation.
And then what would be the mechanics of, we would pass a motion tonight, and then
we
we would draw it up and tell them.
transcribe it, and Ralph, we could send it to the commission by email or by LTC.
It has to be about this.
By LTC.
Has there ever been a situation where the charter review committee reacted to an action that the commission was taking, like an imminent
Yeah,
commission action?
yeah, the
Yes?
5.6 or the 6.6 or whatever that,
Okay.
the thing about the FAR. They
That's
asked
true.
us
Majority.
to
To review that.
That's true.
review it and give them input on it.
Okay,
That's a good example.
that's your motion?
Yeah,
I'll second it.
This is very.
You got a
no,
motion
yeah,
and a
I'll
second?
it. Yeah. that's the
Everybody
motion.
clear on the motion? You wanna, Ralph,
Yes.
you got it?
I think we have it. It's basically to, that the charter review board, or board, right?
Yes,
Charter review revision board, has invested considerable time over the last 3 months in developing
A
a
comprehensive.
comprehensive
Compensation package.
compensation. Improved comprehensive compensation.
I would add the language. So they know we're looking to up it to gain favor from them.
That's fine.
It-
An increase.
Comprehensive review, which resulted in an
Right.
increase.
Maybe instead of improved,
Compensation
increased,
package.
increased compensation.
Well, I'd say increased and comprehensive, both, because it is.
That's
We're
fine.
trying-
No,
we're trying to-
you're right.
But they're all together.
Yeah, but you can do both words, and we urge them to wait on any further action. On this
Until we get to present it.
until the charter review, that the opportunity
Completes
to
its work.
present.
And we would-
Recommendations in which,
Imminent. We're looking at April now.
We would respectfully request that they defer any action until we can present our proposal.
Perfect.
okay.
That.
Moved by Ron, seconded by Sam. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, it passes unanimously. So back to this.
I want to be there when you tell them. I'm just kidding.
It's an email, it's an email.
Because it's the agenda.
But you do, you know, I don't know whether it's Ralph or Raphael. Somebody should read that. It's not just an LTC, the day of the meeting, it should be communicated. So it's
Right
not
into
just
the
an
record.
LTC, yeah.
Yeah,
it's
right
really-
into
it's
the
really-
record.
Raphael will be there, correct?
I'll be there, but
It won't be you. It's gonna be Raphael.
He's like, it's not
in other
gonna
words,
be me.
that's not my role to.
Understand.
Okay.
But you guys are legal to the
And
committee,
it's
right?
like, no.
We'll flip a coin.
Raphael Paz,
We'll draw lots.
Short straw.
short straws, long straws, whatever you want to
Yeah,
do.
because otherwise,
I
one
think-
of us would have to go there and be there and present, you know.
Our chair.
And then it's not even a public hearing, so that it's at their option whether or not they.
It's
allow-
gotta be a public hearing.
No, it's not.
It is public.
It's,
So. you
And
have a
by
right-
public, you mean that will the public be allowed to be in the room? Yes.
No.
Yeah, but
Will
it-
the public
it-
be
it
allowed to
speaks.
speak?
Oh, that's a different issue.
That's up to the mayor.
Yeah.
I think if you just relay it so that they.
Yeah.
know
Well,
it's
they're
not
making
just
they're
reading
making
it
it
and
so there's
they'll-
very, gonna be very little public there by not telling you where the meeting's at.
No, this is classic, you know. Classic.
I don't know what the right word after classic is, but yes.
But yes. So coming back to this then, the question is really, so is there a way, knowing now this, is there a way? You know, from the body of the question, but at least in the text. What we mean is not that anymore, or as little of that they're about to do as possible.
so that's, I think, what we are trying to address, you know, pursuant to the board's consensus with really the first line of the text. Which is that this is the sole total annual compensation. We're adding the word earnings, including all city earnings, because we're trying to be as all encompassing as
But
possible.
we're dancing away from the, sometimes you need to
Then
put the
what would you
quiet part
call
out
it,
loud.
George, what would you call
What's
it?
the quiet part?
What would you call it?
I like what you're
Earnings,
saying
right.
there, I'm
Right.
okay, but.
Right.
But it's almost like, this means no
Let's just.
new self allowance,
Right,
something like that.
Yeah, but-
Phrase,
But
problem with-
there are expenses they are gonna be able to have. So do we spell out the expenses that are permissible, like office expenses are permissible, travel expenses on city business are permissible?
what do they call their expense account now? It's like, it's a personal expense account?
Are you referring to the stipend? Because it's just
Yeah,
referred to the
the
stipend.
The stipend
And-
doesn't say how they can spend it, and that's why it's
right,
taxable.
Correct.
right.
Okay.
And they don't
That's
have to
So-
submit receipts.
So
anymore.
then is it different?
Travel to a conference, not an issue. Office furniture, not an issue. Subscriptions to, you know, publications, I don't think is an issue.
But those are not,
But-
those are not compensation.
Right,
Those
that's what
are,
I'm
those
saying.
are those are expenses.
How
Those
about
are,
just
But
say
are those included in their
reimbursable,
expense now?
work-related reimbursable expenses?
Like when they go
No,
into
but we're not
office,
gonna
they just-
eliminate those.
That's what I'm
the point.
saying.
So
That's the
what's the point in?
Adding that so that they know.
But, okay, so cell phone, let's use the easy one, a cell phone allowance. If they all of a sudden came along and said, oh, great, now I make $51,000 and how about we start with a $50 cell phone allowance?
So what they have right now. According to this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that
well, if
something
they
worth
wanted-
$50
if- if-
bi-weekly mobile phone
It would,
allowance.
as I interpret this, and this is our legal experts, unless they are submitting a bill for their cell phone, and that cell phone is only used for city business, then it does not qualify. It will be treated as compensation, any reimbursement they get, and therefore they would not be permitted to do that.
yeah, the cell phone allowance is treated
As
as
compensation.
as compensation.
And car allowance, so.
Yeah.
Because they don't have to submit any type of
Yeah.
receipt or anything or any
Right.
any
But
evidence.
but what if they
Oh.
came along now and started submitting a receipt every day?
Well, I guess I wouldn't have much of a problem with that. If the cell phone is solely for city use. And it's only used for city business. Then the city could pay for it.
This is how we.
But a car is.
But that's not how,
It's not-
that's not how it's done here.
I guess what we.
No, they just get a lump sum
We
there.
are in this,
So
we are in
that's
this
what changed it.
circumstance, we are in this
So they could
circumstance.
still, if they wanted to, they could still get reimbursed for their cell phone if they followed the rules for reimbursable expenses.
We're trying to correct. I'm gonna use the term a loophole.
Abuse, yeah, where somebody gets a lump sum, whether they're spending that much on their phone or not.
I'll tell you, we have we've listened to the board's discussions for several months, and the intent here is to capture all of it very simply and clearly. I think when we start identifying specific things,
I
it's
don't
gonna
wanna get
beg the
to that,
question
yeah.
of what are we
Well,
omitting,
you
what
did,
should we mention?
Yeah,
And-
I don't wanna get to that.
And so I wouldn't, I think if the intent here is that this amount is their total compensation. That includes their salary, that includes the car allowance, the phone allowance and the stipend. I think we wanna stick to
Let's do
general
this.
terms,
Let's do this, let's
you know.
do the change here, but that you were suggesting, I'm sorry, Julian, was it in the memo that we'll be transmitting this, the section on this topic?
You mean in the
In
report?
the report, that's
your
be
report.
more explicit in the narrative that says our intention and goal is as follows, to correct the loophole or whatever that has happened over time immemorial, and we're now bringing it to correct status, and our hope is, our intention that this not
Okay.
go forward.
Right.
Did you, I'm just curious, did you consider, instead of earnings allowances, like did you consider that? Because I feel like they're very different and they.
The word
suggest-
allowances
Yeah.
instead of earnings?
Yeah, because I just don't
Allowances.
see, I think
What
we're,
do you think? I
we're
think-
talking about allowances, but we're calling it earnings.
I think earnings is broader
Yeah, that
than
was our.
allowances. I think earnings is much broader.
Let's deal with it in the
Okay,
report,
earnings, okay.
and that's at least legislative intent language that you guys
Right,
can. with
right,
your-
but I do just wanna say this, with regards to that part of the report. Because. Well, when we present that report to you, we think there might be things that you want to add, tweak to that narrative. Because yes, Julie, there is, to address the point that Julie stated, there is this charter restriction. But it deals with compensation. So the city has historically, there has been this interpretation that these other matters do not fit within the category of salary. They're elsewhere. So now you're cleaning that up to make sure that all of this is now going to be included under this heading of compensation, which includes salary, which includes all earnings. So that, yes, understood, that'll be within your report.
Okay,
So then, if the,
so can we
unless
can
the-
vote on this then?
Yeah,
With the
yes.
edit that you guys made, read it again,
Yes.
so you say.
Okay, the only edit from what you have in front of you, the only little addition is in the first paragraph of the text. The following the words, the sole total annual compensation. Insert paren, including all city earnings, end of paren. And then to continue, it reads, for the office of commissioner shall be $55,000 and the sole total compensation. Insert paren, including all city earnings. End of paren, for the office of mayor, and then the remainder language follows. And that is consistent with the ballot language as well.
Isn't that a lot more words? Can't you-
Not the ballot
Not in the
question,
text.
in the text, because the ballot question already
Okay, no,
expressly
I'm with you,
states.
the text you want to be
Right.
more clear.
Right,
Okay, so. This item with those recommended edits to the text. It's ready for our vote, if we're ready to take a vote, do I have a motion? Motion to approve. Julie Vassar moves, Elizabeth Latone seconds, all in favor? Aye, any opposed? Hearing none, passes unanimously.
okay, thank you. So now, there is an
And then-
additional,
And then we have that previous motion that you all will communicate to the
yes,
Yes.
to the board.
so continuing with Charter Section 202, there was direction from the last meeting to amend the term limit provision. That is an existing city charter, Section 202, which right now, as a result of 2014 charter change, presently they are lifetime term limits. The direction at the last meeting was to draft language amending Charter 202 to delete lifetime and to put in consecutive, which was in existence prior to the 2014. So what you have in front of you is the draft ballot language and the draft text. And in this, it expressly states, which is what's always been in the charter anyway, since the staggered terms were, since staggered terms were originally inserted in the charter in 1996, is that the term and term limit measurement shall be the term limit measurement shall be computed from one's first election on the city commission. So that means that this proposed amendment, if approved and if placed on the ballot, and if the voters approve it, will apply to future city commission members, incumbent city commission members, and past city commission members. That the term limits will be computed from their first election on the city.
So to be clear, they can have, for example, a commissioner can have two consecutive four-year terms, correct?
Correct.
And then he can be off for a term and then go back on for another two?
Well, let me tweak that. The consecutive terms means that you have to sit out an election cycle. So to take a city commissioner, serves there, it's 2 years, right? Right. So a city commissioner, or the mayor has served his or her term limit. They have to set out an election cycle, which in Miami Beach, it's biennial election, so it's 2 years, and then yes. So theoretically, under this, you could have, because the office of mayor is distinct from the office of commissioner in the city of Miami Beach, you could have, and this was one of the reasons why the city commission was a lifetime, you could theoretically have an individual who is perennially on the city commission.
Yeah, that was Mayor Bauer, when she finished her third term, ran for election as a commissioner again. And lost, but could have won and been
But she legally had the right
Going
to.
from mayor to commissioner.
on the mayor.
So
commissioner could
what-
continue.
Did we talk about having the mayor instead of 3 2-year terms, 2 4-year terms? I mean, what's the reason for him or her having 2-year terms and having to run every 2 years? It just seems like a lot.
Seems like you're constantly
Yeah,
in campaign mode.
I mean, it just seems like
The history of it, as I was, told, was that the predated me was you always have 4 members of the commission running every 2 years.
A majority.
A majority. So the 3 commissioners and the mayor.
Is that a good thing? Is that necessarily a good thing? I mean, I don't know what advantage it gives us.
I'm answering the question.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying, I don't see that as an advantage or even a benefit in particular.
And we're about to change
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah, I personally don't. I personally think that I like that.
You like
Yeah,
the,
the
you like the
reason-
2-year
Yeah,
terms?
the advantage to
But
it
tell me
is
why
if
you
you're
like
unhappy with the direction of the commission. And you only have 3 seats that you can do, then
Can't change
you
it.
can't, then that commission is gonna continue for another 2 years, and whereas the fact that if you're unhappy that you can elect 4 seats,
It's sweep of majority.
then that holds their feet to the fire. But otherwise you have 1 year where you're getting 1 cycle, where you're getting 4, 1 year you're getting 3. And so effectively, if you're unhappy, you don't care. If you're unhappy,
Yeah.
I know that this was brought up, I think it went to ballot and lost. In
Went to ballot on changing it to 4?
changing it to 4 years in a recent past.
I know he
Like,
drafted it,
very
but I didn't
frequent,
know, I
very
didn't remember,
recent.
well,
Oh.
let me look that up.
I thought-
Because I remember Mayor
the last-
Gilbert
Exactly.
wanted,
Very
but I didn't
last,
remember.
uh,
I will just say one thing too, in Miami Beach, as we all know, the mayor is a ceremonial head. However, the mayor holds the gavel. So that's very powerful, and that
Yes.
could be reason for 2-year terms.
Yeah,
But let me check that out.
You
for
can do that, 'cause I'm pretty sure it is, and it failed.
I know.
But in addition to what Ron was saying,
You know what?
generally speaking,
Voted it
an
down.
open mayoral seat drives more turnout.
2019. Yeah.
And historically here, we've had that, the race that matters is when it's an open seat, like the one we just had. You have a lot of candidates, you get a lot of attention, a lot of interest.
You're wrong.
I am pretty sure that barring something very unforeseen, in 2 years or a year and some months now, when it's time to reelect, the current mayor is likely to have little or no opposition, because that's been the norm throughout. Dan Gilbert,
Unless he really messes up.
unless barring something unforeseen.
Right.
And so in well, and
And then they're given the
in-
opportunity to remove them.
yeah, in practice, though it says 2-year terms, they generally get their 6 if they really.
Right.
Do okay. It's very infrequent that a mayor has lost. I mean, I
Uh-huh.
can't remember the last time a mayor's lost.
But he
But
still
but you're
has
right,
to-
George, the
that-
matter did go out November fifth of 2019, and the voters voted
It
it
was,
down.
it went out, was voted on?
Yeah, voters voted
And
it
you know
down.
what? Then I say keep it the status quo because the city's, you know, the.
Asked and answered, no?
Yeah, they've already tried.
Yeah, recently.
Yeah, exactly, recently. But it just, you know, my thing is
Fair question.
constantly, you know, basically he's constantly running for office.
That's,
Yeah, yes,
but now,
the
but now,
practice
you
is
but
not.
now you.
Yeah,
I understand what you're saying. He's running for office, but he wins, but he's still, you know,
Yeah.
if you're a
But-
friend of the mayor, you get hit up every 2 years for money.
Yeah.
That's what it boils down to.
Yeah. But,
You've
Yeah.
explained, you've explained it well.
Yeah.
And, Ron,
No, and listen, the fact that it was already up and the city rejected it,
right.
I think that's enough of a reason to keep it the way it is.
so this though, what this does is say, so for example,
Jane, does the change in the group elections that we have now? Does this contemplate our amending the code or the charter so that there are no longer groups? Is there any
Well,
issue
yes,
there?
because, term limits are individual to the person. So, regardless of if there is a group number or not assigned to a city commissioner, that individual city commissioner will have a
Has
term
their term.
limit.
Okay, so I just wanted to confirm that.
Right, and
Because I didn't want somebody to say, okay, I was in group 1, but now I'm gonna run for group 2.
absolute, no, it's related to the person, their
Okay.
first election.
All right, if that's the way it is, that's fine.
but following up on, I think, Michael, I'm gonna follow up on Michael's question that if we change this form, so it's no longer groups, it's now, does that like wipe the slate clean and there are no lifetime bans?
No, it would,
No, you're still having the same people or.
It's still the same people.
Terms are up.
Right,
and
it's the
you're
same
having a
people.
So this basically says, look, if someone like Saul Gross, use an example, who served 2 years. And wishes to run again, I don't think he does, but if he wishes to run again, he can't unless he runs for mayor. With this lifetime ban, but if he
With a
wanted to be a commissioner again,
Because
why not?
Yeah.
If we do this,
Or
why not?
again,
Oregon,
Or go-
Right.
or actually.
right,
Yeah, any. that.
anybody.
Um. Maybe it's sit out two cycles instead of one, but can you do that? See out 4 years instead
Here's
of
the
two?
thing, I wouldn't recommend it, and I'll tell you why, there is a legal presumption. We're always thinking of, ugh, if we're challenged, could somebody have, a decent, non-frivolous basis for a legal challenge? There is a legal presumption in favor of candidacy, not to discourage candidacy. So whenever there are any rules that are in a city charter and city law or in government law that affect one's candidacy, they are looked upon with a certain degree of, particular examination to see, the whole idea being that the voters should be afforded opportunity for a wide array.
This is pretty tight as it is, so. I mean, and I think, Michael, I think you were the one who kind of brought it up the last time we were meeting with Christine or something like that. Is there a thinking on your side of this?
No, not really. I just wanted to confirm that given we're changing the candidates grouping, that this would not be in any way affected. I mean, I think the idea that, if Saul, for instance, wants to run again, he set out 20 years, but he says, look, I think I want to do it again. Why shouldn't he be allowed to do it? So that's just my.
I do want to say something, Michael, you raise a very good point in this, and we
Rarely.
did want, we did want to just
Twice.
clarify this, and I'm sure you all have seen this already. So section 207 is also in your agenda today, and you may ask
Tell
yourself,
me what that is, because.
right, you may ask yourself, why are we bringing back 207? And there's some red language highlighted, and I tell you why, the board certainly, we can go through it, but I don't think we need to, but we want to explain to you why it's there.
36.
And it ties into what Michael just said. as each change or as each proposed amendment is being discussed and voted upon by the board that you would like, that may or may not have a effect on other sections of the charter that you already have looked at or that you haven't even looked at. So the 207 text that you have in front of you are changes that I felt needed to be further amended to adapt to the change of election method that you are now proposing to Charter Section 2.01. If in fact, this is, when this is presented to the city commission does not agree with that recommendation to change the method of election, then the text change that you see in 207 that's on your agenda right now will not be the 207 that the city commission will have for amendment for placement on the ballot. It will be the original 207. But the point is that because there are so many moving parts, we may need to make changes, and that's something that we are just requesting. Well, I'll tell you that we won't be substantively changing what you already have directed us to,
Separate the issues that.
but we may need
Separate.
to
One,
be
it
making
may have
those
some
changes.
effect on another, and we need to conform everything.
Absolutely
And,
right.
and you know better than
Right.
us. Further down in the charter, that this might have an effect, and if it's gonna be substantive. You'll bring
If
it to our
it's substantive, then we
attention.
bring it back.
Right, if it's
But if-
just language.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay,
So let's bring us back to 202 then.
Right.
How do we feel about this lifetime ban?
I'd like to suggest that I'm not in favor of a like.
I agree. No reason for it.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah,
What was
that- sorry, I got two who are saying let's proceed and put this up there. As a removing the lifetime ban.
Yeah,
Ellen, what do you think?
Well. I like term for 4 years, not two. It's awfully short, because the issue is, you know, to give other people a chance to run, and the longer, you know, what the term limits, you know, you can see what has happened in places like Miami, where you had some commissioners who, you know, were year after year after year and became very entrenched. And so, you know, there's pros and cons. You know,
Yeah.
the pros are, yeah, you're getting, if you have a good experienced person, you can get them back. The cons are, if you have
How many
somebody.
are there?
Yeah, if you have some people who, you know, are, you know, using their entrenched interests to run and take advantage of it, then that's not so good.
Sure.
So I would rather see a bigger gap. I mean, 4 years compared to lifetime is still better in terms of giving the voters choice, Gene. than lifetime, right? We're taking something that's
Moving in the right
already
direction.
more restrictive. And so,
Julie,
Where does it, I'm missing the part about the taking, you know, a year in between, for example, an election cycle. Is that? Sorry, I'm confused. Is that something that, right now, we don't have that. Right now, we,
Oh,
but it
okay,
can't come back.
right now,
right now. you
it's
can
just a
tell.
lifetime term limit.
Okay.
Prior,
Finish,
and
yeah.
that was approved by the voters in 2014. Prior to that, there was a consecutive term limit, the same exact proposal that you all are considering now. In the prior charter language, there was no, because I see what you're saying, Julie, like, where does it say what consecutive means? Right? Where does it say you have to sit out an election cycle? It was not stated because that is how it's interpreted. For whatever it's worth, the county charter also, we know, in, I think it was around 2011 or 2012, put in consecutive term limit. Their charter also does not define, but that is how it's interpreted.
Okay, that's how it's interpreted.
And so you finish your term, you can't run in that cycle, you're done. The next opportunity for you is 2 years,
When the next
Unless-
terms start,
unless there's a special election.
you mean like to fill a vacancy?
To fill the vacancy.
Well, the opinion that we've always given,
and first determine
The
whether or
opinion-
not we want a lifetime ban or
Exactly,
limit
and
it.
then determine that.
Right.
So
I think
I
one
see two and a maybe. Undecided, and Elizabeth,
I like term limits. I don't wanna see what we have, but I understand the pros and the cons. I don't wanna see what we have in Miami. At all. I mean, Miami's a mess. And I. Lifetime seems a little strong.
Jordan,
I tell you where I live, I mean, it's, I don't like the lifetime,
Right.
I like the 4 years before you come back, which is 2 election cycles,
I like
if we
that.
could do that.
Well, in the case of a mayor, it would be. He would do
2
2-year
cycles,
terms and then he have to serve 4 years and come back. Not an election cycle for him.
yeah, but that, I mean, that's, why would you have a stricter rule for the mayor and not for the office of commissioner?
4 years. For the mayor.
Well, but for a
But it's a
commissioner,
term.
But it's a
it's
term,
one
right,
election
it's a
cycle, because
term.
they're 4-year terms. For mayor, it'd be
Mayor's
2
only
election
2,
cycles.
right. Right.
Okay.
Right,
well,
you know, the
yeah, but
whole
that's-
idea of
we could
term
do it
limits
differently. We
is
could
to
do-
avoid the incumbents having the the advantage of being an incumbent. So
I
with
think 4
the,
years, the
It-
further
for both
away
it
from
would
your
be two,
office,
so
the
it would be-
less incumbency you can.
Yeah, the
claim.
language would still say 2 election cycles
Yeah.
because there's every 2 years, there is an election for a commissioner.
Right,
So 2 election cycles means 4 years.
right.
And for the mayor, 2 election cycles would mean also 4 years, right?
I'd be explicit and say 4 years and not even get into the cycles, because if you get into
Well, you could
this,
do it that way too.
well, if you
but
get into
again,
the
why would
special-
you, what is the reasoning?
special
For
election.
imposing, no, a special election is
Right.
different.
Under
Because
current
under the
thing, it's a
charter,
4-year term.
The whole idea about
It's 2 years.
Not
the
if they were-
significance
not
of
if they were
filling a
4 years.
vacancy
That's
is-
what
Yeah, we got-
I see, okay, so that's the question. Question, do we make it every 4 years?
You gotta be
Run
4
again?
years out of office before you can run again for any.
And
then
that
that-
applies
then
to
it
the
would be
mayor
the
and
same
the
for everyone.
commissioner.
Right. it would be the
That would
same
be
for
the
both.
same.
Up to the mayor.
That's what I'm saying.
That's fine.
Either I would
Like make it.
I would lean towards that, or I thought it through and I actually am opposed to it, because I don't think, to your point about
I'm sorry.
opposed to a lifetime term limit. Because the examples I'm thinking about are not I'm not considering, oh, well, if someone was great, we'd want them to come back and stay on. I'm thinking somebody wasn't great and I really didn't want them to come back.
So
That's
then
all.
were you
I think we're middle ground.
I'm thinking where you are.
That's a good point.
So the-
I just want to complete a thought if I may.
Wait, Sam, go ahead.
It's so we all agree, it sounds like nobody wants a lifetime ban. The question is, how do we define when they can run again? Is it a 2-year
2
term
cycles or
or
that?
two? I guess 4 years
I think
really.
4
is-
years from the
4 years
time
would
they
be-
left office.
4 years or 2 years.
Yeah, but so that would mean the mayor has to sit out the mayor who's running it again.
4 years, doesn't matter how many cycles.
Yes, I know, but I just want to point this out. The
Say-
mayor would have to serve out 2 terms. And a commissioner would only have to serve out, would have to wait
But
one
it-
term.
We treat the
But it
mayor
would-
What's the
for-
reason?
It's 4 years.
But it would be 4 years in both cases.
Don't worry about the term, it's 4 years, is what we're saying,
The
is
language,
because
don't worry about the
we
language.
treat
it's
the
4 years.
mayor
Yeah,
differently
if you just say
already.
4 years, there's no issue.
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, and I
And that,
just
and
want to
that
clarify.
addresses they can't run in a special election.
No, the special election is a different issue because here's the thing, term limits are measured from the date your term ends. The special election issue does not come into play with regards to term limits. It comes into play with what is the meaning of a term. Because under our charter, we say that a term is if an individual on the commission has served at least more than 50% of a term, including the filling of a vacancy. So if you are elected at a special election and you have served more than 50% of a term, that's considered a term.
Right.
But that does not mean, in my opinion, I'd like to know what Nick thinks, because we're kind of shooting from the hip here, that if you have served a full term of 2 consecutive terms as commissioner or 3 consecutive terms as commissioner, as mayor, pardon me, that if in fact this consecutive term limit thing is going to go through, that you could then fill a vacancy because you're still subject to the term limit.
Right. That's what we're saying, is that we want that to be an absolute 4 years from the time. of
Yes,
the office.
I understand, but you were addressing special elections to fill
I
a
think we were
vacancy.
saying that
that's
if it's 2 cycles, some of.
But we're eliminating the cycle issue.
Limited the cycle issue.
So do we need to make that a motion or or just have it drafted the way we want it?
I think we need to bring that back, so
Yeah,
I think we,
So you want to vote?
You need a motion?
so no, we know the direction.
Okay.
So it's 4 years from having met the 2 consecutive terms as commissioner or the 3 consecutive, right? They have to wait 4 years
Before they can run again.
before they can be a candidate
Correct.
again.
What if you didn't get Alex out back?
Yeah, that's the issue is.
But that's the issue with term limits in general.
Yeah.
There's examples of why you want term limits and why you don't.
That's.
That was a joke, a bad joke.
But ultimately, the voters get to decide. In this instance, the voter doesn't even get that choice. Okay, so.
Okay, so
got
all we
a
have
little
left
bit of
is,
tweaking there for that.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, now
so
we're into the next one.
we're doing great, it's almost 7. So now we have section 203. Now 203. This is what we did. So at the last meeting, there's been a lot of discussion related to the comp question about certain ethics restrictions. And so you're done with the comp question, although we know we need to tweak that a little bit as for reasons as you all discussed, and we'll bring that back. But with regards to the issue of gift prohibition, we looked at that. And before I get into why our recommendation is to limit the gift restriction of lobbyists and vendors, I also just want to explain something. So we're getting close towards suggesting ideas for the report, meaning you have a lot of very important recommendations, and they'll all be included in the report. But as part of it, legal is determining the placement of ballot questions, of course, for the approval of the Charter Review Board. So in considering this issue of gift that we know is not tied into the compensation question for a lot of different reasons, mostly of which the duty to request the opinions ensures that if the electeds are getting an increase in compensation, there's reason for it to make sure that any outside retention that they have isn't unlawfully giving them additional financial gain. So with regards to the gift, in analyzing this, we had determined that section 203 would probably be the best placement for a gift restriction if you decide to go ahead with a gift restriction. And the reason for that is because section 203 is the section of the city charter dealing with powers of the city commission. And basically that city charter section talks about powers and privileges that are afforded members of the city commission, that are afforded members of all city commissions within the state of Florida pursuant to the Municipal Home Rule Powers Act. So in thinking about that, we thought a logical place to insert this. Remember, I had said at the beginning of the meeting that the Charter Review Board in presenting issues to the voters, look at similar subjects that have common themes for presentation to the public, which again will assist the voters in making sense of this and understanding it. So since section 203 deals with powers of the commission, we thought that the gift as well as the non-interference issue that you had already discussed would be appropriate for placement within amendment to the same city charter section. So that's why what you have in front of you is an amendment to section 203 dealing with powers of the commission, which addresses, again, powers and privileges of the city commission. So an amendment to the powers and privileges of the city commission is the gift restriction and the non-interference, all dealing with powers and privileges of the city commission. So that's why we
Let me ask
formatted
you on this, that's where it appears in the charter, but we've heard a couple times here that that it has to be placed in a certain location so that the Miami-Dade Commission on Ethics has jurisdiction.
In
Yes.
both, right,
And so
Yes.
does this
in the
do that?
the Dade County Ethics Commission. The state of Florida Ethics Commission has jurisdiction over anything we have. If it's in the charter, if it's in the code, if it's in the Bill of Rights. The Dade County Ethics Commission only has jurisdiction over the Bill of Rights and the city's code of ethics, not elsewhere. And in here, you could see that we have implementing language where it specifically says that if you decide to go ahead with these with the gift proscription, then that shall be incorporated into the city's code of conduct, thus affording the Dade County Ethics Commission jurisdiction.
By ordinance.
So.
Yeah.
Okay, so by ordinance, and if doing so, then does that other piece that says you can no longer water down an ethics without a referendum, would that pick this up?
You mean the provision in the city charter that
Yeah.
talks about any,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. But, to be clear, that means that the city commission could choose to, if you all decide to make gift proscription a recommendation to the city commission for a charter amendment, the city commission could say, we're not going to accept that recommendation, and we'll just consider it as an ordinance. And we'll, we may consider that. But either way, yes, it would be subject to Dade County Ethics Commission jurisdiction, and it would also be subject to the global
Okay,
rule
well,
that
yeah.
anything that the city is making less stringent in the city's code of conduct has to be approved by
But
voters.
is that, is this a code of conduct? Because
It
you're
will
putting it in
be.
a different place
It will be once it's incorporated
by the code.
into the code, yes. Now, there's also a requirement for implementation in here, if you see in the second bullet point. Requires city to implement the above gift restriction. Now, with that, without getting into too much, detail unless you want me to. There are some provisions that do not require implementing legislation. And what I mean by that is this. There are some provisions in the city charter that are self-executing. You don't need anything in the city charter. Whatever is stated in the charter is in and of itself effective, and that's the guiding principle. There are some provisions that may require implementing legislation in order for the city commission to further have definitions. This is one of those. So if the Charter Review Board decides to put gift proscriptions as a recommendation for charter amendment to the city commission accepts that. And if there's a lot of ifs. And if the voters approve it, then subsequent to that approval, there will be ministerial amendments that city attorney's office would need to
Why is that?
engage in that
Why
will
would we
be.
do it that way, instead of just self-effecting?
Because there are some, with regard to the gift proscription, there are some terms that need definitions. I would recommend they have to be defined. Just by way of example, if you wish, now we can get into the gift proscription.
I mean.
There are.
Hang on, let
Oh,
Julie answer
sorry,
first.
no, go ahead, say your
Okay.
piece and then I'll.
So you
ask
know
a
how
question.
we have discussed previously, and I believe that Jose Arroyo, the executive director of the Dade County Ethics Commission, also spoke to you about it, that right now under state of Florida ethics laws, and Dade County has adopted those laws, by incorporation. Under state of Florida ethics laws, members of the city commission, and I'm just focusing on members of the city commission now, are prohibited from receiving a gift exceeding $100 from a lobbyist or a vendor. There are specific definitions under state gift law of what is a lobbyist and what is a vendor. So that definition should be adopted within the ordinance that will be implemented in legislation. It's just good practice to do that. That is what the implementing, but the basic.
Hang on, I'm lost here. Didn't we say go and try to pick up the definition of what a developer?
You did,
no,
but
that's-
this is why
Because
we would not.
this is not doing anything, it feels.
It's missing the developer.
Well, here's the thing, first of all, a real estate developer does fit within the definition of lobbyist. Because the definition of lobbyist is the person doing the lobbying, the individual, as well as the principal.
I
So-
understand, that's a legal, but to the lay person who's gonna vote on this. I think it's best that they saw that word, if that's what we were trying to stop and prevent from happening. You're accomplishing maybe the same thing, but the voter needs to see that.
Yes.
Yep,
I see
I'll-
this and I'm saying.
voter needs to be
They're already
clear.
regulated, they can't get it
Right,
anyway.
but we
What
also
have we
need to
done?
make sure that we're providing legally sufficient, language that, and here's the thing, Ron, if I may, I'm sorry, I just want to make one thing clear before I forget. The definition of real estate developer under the city's campaign finance ordinance, because that's what we spoke of at the last meeting, as well as the definition of vendor under the city's campaign finance ordinance, is very limited. It's specifically defined with specific exemptions. And as far as lobbyists go, the definition of a prohibited lobbyist gift is much broader under the state ethics laws than under our campaign finance laws. So if you all wanted, and we understand that that's what you were speaking about, the real estate developer who is prohibited from giving campaign contribution under the city's campaign finance law, that definition is relatively restricted to individuals, and I would defer to Nick, but basically I would tell you, it's individuals who are have applications that are pending or applying for comp plan amendment or zoning map changes.
Or a development.
So
agreement,
what-
but it's
what does
very,
this-
it's very
What does
narrow.
this change currently? So right now, the state says you can't take a gift from a lobbyist or vendor,
Over $100.
Over $100.
and this is saying now it's zero.
Right.
It's zero.
But everything else. Katie
Well,
bar
who
the door.
else?
Who else? Yeah, but the umbrella of lobbyist is pretty broad.
Can you, to George's point, would it be possible to, in the language here
Mhm.
for the voters to put, lobbyists, and then just put parens next to lobbyists, includes developers? So that it's not like, so that it's clear that that we got that word in there, and it's clear to the voter that this is in fact, lobbyist does in fact include developers.
So the text or in the
Um,
question itself?
Question.
You
problem
guys
is-
had a lot of insight on this, so, this doesn't feel like I think we watered back from where we seem to be headed.
I think the problem with the term developer, Ron, is that it's not defined. The one place it is defined is in the campaign finance
Yeah.
ordinance.
And it's too limited, because you
Okay.
don't,
So
see,
it's
here's
not
the
as too
thing.
limited, I think it's more limited than what the board is looking to do.
Well, that's it.
But I'm
That's
saying
it.
substitute the one for the other, you can say lobbyist, vendor, developer, plumber, whatever. You can put a lot of these things, except you're limited to the 75 words, but other than that, you're not.
No, let me,
True.
but it's all about the definitions, because a developer, we don't know of a developer who's not a lobbyist,
Right.
but theoretically, here's the thing. If you have someone who is not engaging in any communication with the city prior to the request for relief, is not appearing in front of the city commission, is not meeting with city personnel, if you have somebody who just submits an application, don't you agree the submittal of the application itself is not lobbying?
That's right.
It's not. So if you have somebody, I can't ever see it happening, but if you have somebody who just submits the application and that's it, they're not a lobbyist. Now, does that happen? No, it doesn't, because there will always
Always
be.
be before. It just feels like we're not capturing.
There's something missing and I'm
initial
not quite
intent here.
sure, it's like. If I'm a voter, because I am. I'm reading this and it's not very clear to me. And again, it seems like many of the ballot questions that we've had have been voted no on because they were not specific or clear
Doesn't go where the.
to
Well,
someone who's casting their ballot. This,
What is it
With
that's not clear?
with-
'Cause
yeah,
that's
it's
what we-
not clear.
let's-
okay,
Let's focus.
it has to have something to do with, it has to say something about development in some way. I'm not quite sure how, but that seems to be what Miami Beach is,
My issue with this isn't necessarily the missing word developer, but the fact that in some of the other ballot questions, you state what the current
Maybe that's
policy
it.
is,
Uh-huh.
and then you,
Uh,
because the voter
It's not-
doesn't really know how this differs.
and
from
they're not
what
gonna know what,
currently
they're not gonna
is.
know what the
And so
regulated,
I'm not,
I'm sorry.
no, but that, for me,
Right.
that's what's.
So you're suggesting perhaps,
Voter might see this and say lobbyist and city vendor, but it leaves the rest of the world out there.
Right.
Well, that's a
Who
separate
is
issue.
that?
Really,
Who
what I'm
is it?
saying
Who's that,
I'm
though?
Define the rest of the word.
I don't know, but I'm just pretending to be a voter saying, all right, well, maybe it's more, this is.
Well, what if you,
Well, how about this? How about
For
this?
sure.
To say something like, because I will tell you, I had it in one of the drafts, but it's a question of also wording too, and the word limit. Expand to reflect what you just addressed. To state something about that this is expanding upon existing state law, which prohibits elected officials
much
from
better.
receiving a gift over $100 by prohibiting all gifts, no gifts from a lobbyist or a vendor.
That's much better and more clear. It's
Okay,
concise.
and we could recommend that because we know what
Yeah,
a
that's
lobbyist and a
really
vendor is, and we're telling you.
Yes.
Okay,
that's not-
okay.
Yeah, I
But
think
it's
that-
still, it does kind of
I
go
think
back.
that
and
pulls into what we
Mhm.
have and what we're trying to expand.
I think that,
yeah,
do you
that
think, Ron?
helps. Yeah, because
I agree.
from reading this, it's not clear whether we are making this is more generous.
Yeah.
Or less
Yeah.
generous.
Oh,
than-
yes,
than what they currently
Yes.
have. So that's where
Right.
that
but
clarification-
just so that you all understand, you know, and you know what we mean, because I think we've said it. I've said it a lot, I tend to repeat myself, but when we draft ballot language, and you know, every governmental entity drafts it different. As a matter of fact, if you see the state of Florida constitutional amendments, the way they draft their ballot language, which has been upheld by the courts, they don't even say, shall the charter be amended? They just have a title and they say what it does. We try to draft our ballot questions, so we are making every effort, and I'm not suggesting the state does not at all. But we try to draft our ballot questions. I don't want to say in a more folksy manner, because that's not really, but we try to be very clear as much as we can, but we do have the 75. So that is why, yes, Julie, when we can, we state. It's just a drafting style. Charter presently says blah, 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 and shall the charter be amended to blah, blah. Yeah, if we could do, so I understand. That's what we'll do. We'll
So
ensure
are we-
what's
but it-
expanding state law,
I
which
wanna
presently
come back
says.
to
Well,
the
is
group a second.
expanding,
Is the
you know,
group-
think about it some more, because expanding could be in a good way or a bad way.
Well, we'll say
Further
existing state
restricting?
law,
Further
expanding
restricting?
state law, which currently prohibits members of the commission, I'm just gonna verify.
I think
From
the word
receiving gifts.
expanding is wrong, restrict is better if you can get it.
Further
Automatic.
restricting.
Further.
Oh, further
restricting.
restricting,
Right.
yeah,
That's what I
okay.
said.
Right.
So,
But are we comfortable with really zeroing in on lobbyists and citizens?
What do you mean?
Well, I understand the legal issue, and this is, I guess I would have to say,
We started on no,
Yeah.
no gifts altogether.
So here-
That's where we started. So we're moving in a direction. That's okay.
here's where I'm gonna say yes, I'm okay with it, because it accomplishes what we want to do. Though without having the words in there, it is may not be clear to voters that developers are
Yes,
encompassed in this, but but if there are complications or reasons why that word going in here is a problem, and I'm okay with not having it in there as long as in fact it is.
is there a substitute?
and again,
for-
keep in mind
Hang on,
that you will have your,
Let us, give me a second. So what about the person representing a company or otherwise who is seeking, so if they're seeking some level of redress from the government somehow, by definition, they become a lobbyist, is what you guys are saying?
if
Yes.
they have intervened, the mere submittal of an application in and of itself is not
No,
lobbying.
I'm a possible vendor. Run a restaurant. I'm not a vendor today. But I'm gonna come to the council or commission and convince them that they should put an RFP
You
out.
have to register. As a
That
lobbyist.
makes me a
You
lobbyist.
are.
You are
lobbyist.
seeking foreseeable action.
Okay.
Yeah.
At that moment, I've registered, I'm a lobbyist, and then if I succeed and get selected, then I become a vendor and probably a lobbyist too.
Right.
But submitting an application that requires a zoning change, is that a lobbyist?
Yes.
You would have to
Oh,
register as a
yes.
lobbyist, yes.
Yeah,
So merely submitting an application doesn't, but if it's an application that may require a zoning change, that triggers it. Is that-
Right, and that's exactly right. And just to be clear, submitting an application is like, if you're submitting a building permit application, you know what I mean? That does
Right.
not make you a lobbyist.
Right.
What about the timing of
Or
the,
variance would,
This
Yeah,
goes back
because
to-
variance, you have to appear before a board.
any
Yeah,
variance,
the
yeah.
example
like I wanna
you-
change my windows. and
It's-
all that.
I'm
It's
trying.
Now-
any interchange,
Myself in a
you know,
different
if
position.
you're just passively filing a piece of paper. But we know that isn't what happens.
what if
Yeah.
the restaurant owner isn't planning to register as a lobbyist because they're not asking for anything specific
Just drop
right
in
at
the
that
idea.
moment, but a year down the road they plan to? I mean, is there
Well, if
anything
you
in
are
this
just
language that
asking
prohibits-
questions, right? Maybe this addresses
Yes,
what you said,
given-
right? I believe, under the definition of lobbyist in the city code. If you're just asking questions. And you're not, you're just asking objective questions, you know, how do I do this? And if I wanna open a restaurant, what do I have to do? That's lobbying.
But it,
I'm
there's
saying
kind of a
warming
there's a
somebody
nuance.
up.
There's
Who
a
does that
nuance
mean?
between, I think you should put an RFQ out, I'd like to bid,
Oh, well,
and.
That's a
and
lobbying.
That's for
that's
sure.
lobbying.
There's a difference between that and, hey, how long has it been since that thing was last put out?
That-
I thought that was also-
And you know,
particularly-
I will say one more,
Make me a lobbyist just yet.
right, I agree, but I will say one more thing along the lines of, we understand what you're saying, you know, could there be some, you know, misuse of the process? There are very strict, there are strict ethics penalties. If you are a lobbyist and you have not registered as a lobbyist and you make contact with the city. So for that individual who thinks, hey, I'm gonna just ask the city questions, you know, and I'm not a lobbyist, so therefore you're not subject to all these rules. If in fact you're a lobbyist and you're not registering as a lobbyist, the Ethics Commission will undertake investigation if there's a break.
Yeah, but Gene, vaguely remember when we were discussing this, that you gave an example where somebody maybe gives a gift. And then a year later, they go to try to get something done. And I thought that there was some language somewhere there
It's
that
the
said, oh
12
no, we have
months.
to.
It's the
withdraw
12
that."
month, under the state,
Campaign.
no, well, that's different, that, under the city's campaign finance ordinance. The city's campaign finance ordinance affects not just city personnel, but private individuals who are vendors or lobbyists for vendors or real estate developers or lobbyists for real estate developers or anybody who gives a campaign contribution.
If you gave a campaign contribution, you can't become a vendor for 12 months.
That's right, that's right. But
So that it's not.
the charter,
Immediate.
right,
whatever.
but the charter is presently, and I would personally not recommend it, and I'm not suggesting that's where you're going with this, but the charter does not impose penalties on individuals other than city personnel. So, but you're right, it does.
Well, not fair enough. So for a developer, who like is, you know, giving, is not a vendor or a lobbyist at the time, but you know, it is to Julie's point, they're thinking, well, 2 years from now, I'm gonna be coming something that I want.
Gotta plant the
So in the
seed.
meantime, I wanna try to make as many friends as possible. And then after 2 years, they submit something. There's no look back. To the back.
Well, under the state definition of lobbyist, it includes with reference to the city of Miami Beach, it says a lobbyist is someone who is a lobbyist, and I know I sound like I'm kind of not directly, but I am headed there. It says that someone is a lobbyist who is a lobbyist under the state, under your city's registration law, as well as an individual who was required to be registered as a lobbyist the preceding 12 months. So if somebody is no longer a lobbyist, but they were a lobbyist within the preceding 12 months, they can't get around this gift prohibition.
But his example is somebody
The
that's
other way
not a
around.
lobbyist,
Right.
and is thinking about down the road, a
Soon,
year or
maybe
two,
someone.
he may wanna do something with the city, so he's.
But
gonna-
right, but the idea is, May, you don't know, that person may.
I
that's
just,
right.
it's a loophole, I just.
No, no,
I
but I
don't
mean,
think it's
after
a
the
loophole.
fact.
What do
It's
we call it?
affording people their rights to, you know,
Yeah, I-
the
I
average
get it.
citizen has the right to.
As long as we
Yeah,
recognize it's a
yeah,
loophole.
yeah.
There
What-
there
what do
may
we
not
call
be a way to fix this, but if you were to see a situation where somebody had been giving very generous gifts to the city. The commissioners.
Yep.
Because, you know, when, if
He
real
was doing
estate
business
development,
with the city.
whatever, that's a long-term thing. They're
He's a
thinking
lobbyist.
2 years.
What he did was illegal.
2.5, 3 years, I mean, to come.
Was
So they're very
Why is he being
genuine, yes, and they
investigated?
become a beloved. You know, they endure themselves to a lot of commissioners. And then, you know, a year before they submit, they stop giving the gifts, but it hasn't been forgotten. But then, if this commission was to approve it, somebody could do an article in the newspaper and say, wow, you know, so-and-so gave all the, you received all these
Came
gifts
together
from
and
this
they were-
guy,
right.
you know, 12 months ago, but so that, something that looks kind of fishy here, isn't this, is this allowed? And the answer would be, yes, it is.
But you know what would happen most likely? I don't want to speak for the Dade County Ethics Commission, but we have read that things happen in the community that are not per se ethics violations, but the Dade County Ethics Commission, through complaint or on its own initiative, have looked at that issue. And they have said, we don't like it. They've said, we don't like it. It's not a violation of law, but we don't like it. So you know, one of the great values of the Dade County Ethics Commission is that they give direction even where there is not a per se violation. But you're right, under that, it would not be a technical violation.
The challenge is defining what is a sort of pre-lobbyist, which is, I think.
Yeah,
what you
no,
were getting
I
at.
don't have an answer to it. I'm just,
I know, I
just
agree.
pointing out that there's.
Somebody
that
who
there
might
is-
become one.
There is a loophole here.
Predicting your
that we're not gonna
Because,
capture.
right?
Yeah, I think, I don't think it's
Because
possible to capture because,
You know,
you know, they may want to do business with the city, but they may not.
That's right.
well, they can always say they didn't know at the time.
Of course, that's exactly what
But
they
for-
said, and that's the
Would
loophole.
say, I mean,
That's the loophole. They could have a plan already in place.
Yeah, they'll strategize that.
For-
course.
For our, you know, for our purposes, the rules have to be clear. You know, we have to be able to
Yeah,
enforce
that
that.
time frame, 12 months is what you're
Yes.
working.
Yeah.
Can we look at the third bullet point for a
Okay.
second?
I wanna look at
I'm
the
not
other.
really clear on what this means or what this applies to. No power to give orders to city managers, subordinates. What does
Yeah,
that mean in relation to gift?
No,
Okay,
it's
it-
not gift, it's
Something
two
so
concepts,
mis-
yeah, this is basically saying. You know, the city managers. Head of the organization and any instruction has to go to the city manager, apparently, this is the whole
So then why
non-interference.
are
with-
these related? I just don't.
This was just a
know.
placement, you're trying to.
It's just a
Okay.
placement, you know, because we're trying to make good, efficient use of each ballot question while still ensuring that we feel that the voters will be adequately informed by each ballot question. And this final bullet point addresses the non-interference that the board had already approved in concept. But the question is, we felt it was best for placement within section 203 because it deals with powers of the civic commission. Does it have to be in this ballot question? It doesn't. But we felt if you want to do the gift restriction, so as not to limit one question to gifts, that it has to be a similar type measure related to the same charter section, or we felt that would be the most, if we could do that, and we did here.
Yeah, I get it. I would, if we're short on words to really clarify our gift thing. I'd rather get that one right than try to bundle this into this question. So let's make sure we get the first two bullets. Right.
Mhm.
And I understand your comment on lobbyists, and you're right, and I'm right, and we're inside
Yeah.
baseball here.
Yeah.
But to the rest of the world, our definition of lobbyist may be different than theirs, and so it may warrant something to explain, either define what a lobbyist is, or at least such as, or some other language that might capture more, but not limited to a developer or a vendor or this, that prospective vendor, something like that, so
Could
that
this be somewhere we use that legislative intent kind of a explanation?
it, I'm not in this instance, in this instance, I think the voter, otherwise. Unless they've had the hour that we've had on it,
Right.
are they gonna know that that prospective vendor is a lobbyist technically the moment they had the question? They're not gonna get that the way we have.
But
And I'm worried that they will just say, well, lobbyists, and that's not enough.
And we
well,
also want the
to-
commission
but they're
to-
not gonna vote, I would think they were not gonna vote it down if it's further restricting.
Right.
Yeah,
That's the
Right.
When I
critical
said
thing.
further
Further
restrict, I said further restrict.
Staff in the right, it may not be everything that they want, and because I think of not only the developer, I think the bigger loophole is the fact that 12 months in a day You can give your gift, you know, but that's not worth getting, I understand the problems with trying to vote that in.
Alright, so even though if we're gonna add those words, if it somehow
Yes,
I mean, I just think that's
bumps this
simple.
bullet off,
yes,
then it
Simple,
must
like a
go.
little harder hitting,
Yeah,
yeah, okay.
It's just not, it's simpler and it just gets straight to it. You don't have to, and I think people will connect with that. Maybe.
it can go, it
People
can go,
usually are on one side of the aisle, this or the other, where they want to see, you know.
further restricting is probably gonna make this thing pass.
Mhm.
Whatever
Got
we're
it.
doing,
Right,
but
that's
further
the-
restricting,
100%.
I'm voting for it.
Okay.
You know,
People
so-
always having politicians keep, you know, their hands out of the till.
And if it's not perfect, it's close. So if we can get that and keep bullet 3, great. If it somehow.
Keep the non-interfering,
Can
yeah,
you put that even in the title instead of prohibiting gift acceptance, say further restricting gift acceptance?
I like
Yeah,
that. I like that,
definitely.
Ron.
yeah. Yeah, you know, I mean, the gift title has it has its own legal requirements, but yeah,
I guess the commission still has to approve this to come on,
yes,
which.
right.
But technically, what we're saying is all those people that used to be able to give me $100 is now 0.
Yeah.
That's what we're saying.
Can't do that.
All right, so what do we, do you wanna edit it here and bring it back or?
You know what,
Yeah.
I really need to
Yeah,
with Nick, you know, just like sit down, focus, but they should not be a big discussion at the next meeting because we understand exactly what you want to do. So we are bringing back, let me just look at. Agenda here. Excuse me. Because it's 7:25 and we've gone through the
Yeah.
meeting.
I like the game, so conscientious about the time.
Well, it's,
Well, let's go number 6. Number 6, I think we're ready to vote on.
what's
Our chair just wants to keep us.
This is the one about how you fill a vacancy, right?
oh, okay, I mean, if you wish to vote on that, that's fine. I mean, I personally, I brought it to, I don't think you need to vote on it because it's more conforming to your 201 changes.
This is not the
Which
other-
again, there will be other conforming language that we would
No,
not
no,
bring
no.
back to you unless it affects substance.
So remember,
Of
this
what
is
you want
the presumption of an election within 30 days. Unless we appoint. Did we already vote on
You
that?
already
voted on
approved
that,
it.
but what we're bringing you are some tweaks.
Oh, the red,
It's just the red, George,
Consistent with,
the method, the change of the method of election
Right.
form.
in 201,
Yes.
exactly, it's just conforming
So
language.
you don't need to vote on that?
No.
Okay, then you.
Right.
Let's go. Next item, this is a discussion and real quick. We don't have a vote on this, but we can direct. County issues geo bond and other indentured debt. And those that require a referendum can be placed on any ballot. I'm suggesting that those questions be held at a general election in November, general municipal election in November. You don't do it in March, you don't do it in August, you don't do it during the recess, you do it during the November election, which is the election that we expect is gonna be the highest vote.
You said the county.
Only every 4 years?
You said the county. but
City,
the
city municipal election.
He's hungry.
Pardon?
You're hungry.
I'm
Everybody is.
confused. Our regular city elections are in off years, so this wouldn't be in the same year as a commission candidate election. This
No,
would be
yeah,
in
yeah.
No, it would
the
be.
other year.
No, it would be.
It would be,
Oh, okay, the same year as a commission candidate.
Yeah.
And so that would be
November,
every 2
odd-
years.
Odd years, November.
But on November as opposed to another month.
right, and under the theory that the board is considering now for change of election, it would be held at the time of the city commissioner's general election and the mayor runoff.
Okay, yeah, whatever you want to define it, but it's the November
It's the
election.
November general election.
Okay,
I think that is.
Do you want to maybe provide for perhaps a waiver by the city commission if need exists?
and the reason we raise that is because let's say there was some emergency where the
Always
city needed,
Because find an emergency.
where the city needed to raise
By
money.
super majority vote or,
If there was, say, an economic downturn and a pressing infrastructure need.
Yeah.
And we
You know,
always think of like the worst case
Yeah,
scenario.
but you're gonna raise taxes, you're not gonna pass bonds in an economic downturn. The purpose of this, in my opinion, is to kind of make sure that we're not playing games. We had an election in August and we'll place something on the ballot because we think that's the best chance for it to succeed. It becomes a routine. It's every November. And it's the council or the commission gets to know in advance, yeah.
I think historically, though, I know I looked at the last couple of bond measures, the city has placed them on November general election. Do you remember?
I know that there's one that went in August recently.
There was?
Yeah.
Oh,
The
a
art-
Geo bond?
The arts and
That
culture
was it.
Oh, that was.
and the raising of the tax for resort tax, although I'm not sure that's
What was
not a
it?
geo bond. That was not a November election either, but I'm
Did they-
focusing on geo or other bond that would require a vote. So
And
like
you're-
revenue bonds.
Not revenue
Don't
bond, it's
require-
Geo bond.
You're
Have we ever-
proposing this because you feel that it should be more like formalized so that it's not a.
I think that
Um,
it should be on November when we have the highest turnout.
turnout,
Yeah,
We have the
right?
most people, and people are also running for office, so if they put it on the ballot, they can defend their position as to why or why not.
Ken, is there language, to Nick's point, it's where, emergency, I mean, where it's defined, is that defined anywhere
It's,
in our?
it's generally stated something about if the city commission determines a public need, it's the general public purpose requirement, because the city commission is given.
That's not what I'm thinking, I'm thinking more, we had a hurricane and we had, we need to raise money quick, we need. funds.
But that's not a geo bond. Geo bond is capital based.
No, it could be general
No,
obligation.
Ron
bond,
is
sure.
talking about the exception.
Yeah.
The waiver.
It could be, you could issue a general obligation bond to pay for repairs related to a hurricane.
Knock on wood. I'm gonna say that.
Then I wouldn't wanna wait.
But that's not an emergency at that point. The recovery part of it, the emergency,
Well, they may not have the money otherwise, you may need to quickly go to market and raise. Or you
But-
may need.
I think we-
Well, somebody has an
You
emergency fund for that kind of stuff. though,
You
too.
have-
well, you have reserves,
Yeah,
but
reserves,
let's say the reserves are like 30-40 million. Let's say we need $200 million.
So barring something that's time.
I can't see an emergency that's gonna dictate it to an emergency.
Hurricane,
Tidal wave.
something. Well, but I'm just saying, if
You're
the
saying-
language was tight
Aliens.
enough so that I could, I don't know, George, if the language was tight enough so that it's clear that it's not for convenience, but it's truly.
Do you wanna come up with?
Well, let me
Yeah,
just say this,
Under
under section 205 of the charter right now.
Yeah.
It's gotta be.
Under the charter right now, because, the home rule powers of governing bodies is latitude, so long as it satisfies public purpose of what an emergency is, that's the commission's inherent, one of their inherent powers and privileges, and under section 205, it defines, it says, public emergency ordinances, that do not require a second reading. To meet a public emergency affecting life, health, property, or public safety. The city commission may by 2/3 vote adopt an emergency ordinance at the meeting. And then there's super noticing requirements that are applicable to emergency ordinances now.
That's no, but maybe to. I guess to Ron's point is, maybe, November of an odd year,
November general election.
general election, unless there's a federal or state declared emergency that needs to be addressed.
I like it.
Not a local declared emergency, a federal or state, if it's a hurricane, federal or state's gonna declare an emergency.
But what about if the city, to Nick's point, has a financial emergency?
So if you're gonna have it, you'll know it's coming before it hits you and you'll plan
It'll be
accordingly.
related to something happening. Right?
Normally geo bonds
I get
are
it.
for capital projects that are in your 25-year plan that have been.
Well, the
normal.
geo bond, that's just practice. What is meant by a general obligation bond is the city is giving its full faith
Faith and
and credit to the borrowing of the money, whatever it's used for, as opposed to other types of funding, which might be project specific, like parking bonds. or-
Yeah, but geo
or
usually
sewer.
entails a capital project. It's not used for general government.
No, it can be used for anything. In fact, the last one, much to my happiness, a lot of the money was for general repairs and things. Probably they were capital in nature, but
Capital.
they were not,
Yeah, you're not gonna pay payroll.
well,
It's supposed to.
yeah,
And they were approved facilities and things like that,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, right.
Usually you don't find that as an emergency situation. In my experience.
Well, that wouldn't be an emergency. An emergency would have to be, I mean,
Yeah, watch it all.
what Gene read.
It would have to be for
I'm not
like an
sure
act of
exactly
nature, which
where-
is gonna be covered by state and
disaster,
federal,
that's
for the
right.
most part, FEMA.
Yeah, I mean, you could limit to the natural disaster, but then there may be other situations where the city has to borrow money.
I just think it's a good government background. You know, don't play around with the full faith and credit. You got a credit card, you get to use it in November. Or we get to.
Yeah, but I mean, I would have wanted the arts and culture bond. Although that one was so beautifully sugar coated that it was asking for what.
I guess you weren't a fan, huh?
Well, what bothered me was that the city had every year does a budget as an opportunity to fund these
Fund
things.
these things.
And they had a lot of other things that were unfunded, like stormwater, I mean, things that had to get done, so that this was a way to. You know,
Bypass.
bypass. I
It
didn't
might,
like
it
that.
might
Yes.
actually, from a future planning perspective, it might put some structure around when and how you do GOs. And from a staffing perspective, you start planning for those November dates, and whether it's every November or every other November or whatever that may be. You start to have a structure versus just, hey, let's put a bond out.
Well, anyway,
Can you-
see where we
can I
are.
ask you to
I
come
would
up
be
with a-
okay with Queen's language on emergency, but you know, I'm not gonna. I'm just one person. It'd be good if we really had the benefit of the group thing.
Why don't you guys come up with what is a reasonable exception?
I do too.
Should
and
be
I
an
know-
exception.
and I know where- and I know
We
where-
need direction.
I know
I-
where-
The exception,
But the exception has to be a real exception, not because
There has
we
to be
got
some-
5 votes and so we can. The commission can just vote five sevenths.
it has to affect
Not that-
life. The definition of emergency granted as a matter of home rule to the governing body is affecting life, health, property, or public safety. And
Can that
that's
be part
not
of the
something that,
Language, or
You
you
can
feel
put
like
that,
it's
I still think
too-
that a declared emergency.
Yeah, but we're already, by what we did here, they would not be able to pass the article. And August.
In August.
Right, this already closes the door in a big way to that kind of abuse, but you know, I'm nervous about tying the hands too tightly,
Federal or state
you know, in the case of.
emergency,
Well, maybe it's a local. emergency.
who decides?
Yeah, but then
He's back then.
local could be spring break.
Oh, it could be some local
I mean,
emergency
seriously.
that's not a national, anyway.
But we don't need to.
We're not voting on it tonight.
Yeah.
Can
Spring
we
break, thank you.
ask them
I
to
mean,
Because
to-
you could be coming
flesh it out?
Maybe that-
So flesh it out and let's, different ideas on what
We
the
can
exception
bring,
may
we
be.
can bring you something
Yeah.
concrete.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
So
right,
that's what I'm saying.
then.
Capital improvements or repairs necessary in the aftermath of some sort of
Natural
natural
disaster.
disaster. That's what we
Yeah.
were thinking.
Health crisis.
But it's gotta be capital, you know,
Yeah. That.
let us brainstorm.
Great, so-
Yeah.
Okay, and then,
Days.
I'm gonna do the dates. I'm gonna propose March 25th and April 15th. Think we had. This.
Hang on, we're gonna go.
April 15th is not so good for me, it's my birthday.
I know, yeah.
What-
Julie,
what-
you're
I
not
thought we had
available on the
2 dates, like the
25th and
16th
Ron is.
would work.
I can't do the 16th. I have 2 other boards, believe it or not.
We're gonna be with 5. This is what we got.
I can do the
So
25th.
it's either
Right in the
Ron,
middle of
it's either
spring
Ron
break,
or
y'all.
Elizabeth.
What dates are we talking about?
March 25th.
This is
That's
the,
the results of that survey monkey or whatever.
is anyone else here?
I'll take one.
Wow.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, so, yeah, exactly, we're gonna miss one person no matter which dates you pick, unless you pick different dates than these.
March 25th, and what other day?
Well,
Right
there's
in the
March
middle of
20 look at the
spring break.
thing, it's right there,
April
March
16th,
25th, April
April
15th,
15th.
April 16th. I mean, you can still read, right?
Board
What's
members,
going on March 25th?
if I may, we were hoping to present, we were hoping to present draft of your report by April to you all. Because that way you will be done, the board will approve the report, with whatever changes you feel appropriate. And have it present the city
Yeah,
commission.
the idea being
Hey,
that we
we-
have March
That would-
28th.
I'll sacrifice your birthday and then I'll take the 16th. How about that?
Then it sounds like a March 25th is really.
Yeah,
the,
Because we have
um,
February 12th and March 4th as our next two dates.
February 12th and
March 25th gives us one more day to vote on items, and then the April is when you're gonna bring the report.
February 12th.
Right, I'm sorry, what was that again, February?
February 12th and March 4th are already on the calendar.
We can do
Right.
the 18th.
Right.
Can anybody do the 18th of April? Is that a bad date? It's not a commission date. It's not a,
Yeah, is there another
February
meeting in
12th.
March, George?
Yes.
It's just.
or the
Is there
17th
another meeting in
even. Sorry, the 17th.
Fourth is
March 25th.
The 17th.
March.
March
So now we
4th,
have-
but is there another
So
meeting
what
in
is it
March?
be, March 25th and the
Yeah.
April 16th?
March 25th.
Cause that would be good.
You can come on the 16th?
February 12th and March 4th are on the calendar.
Yeah, I'll. figure
Let's
it
do
out.
the 16th. We're gonna do
April
April
16th,
16th.
okay.
That gives everybody.
And Ron gets his birthday.
Ron gets his birthday, and then truly March 25th.
Mhm.
So so April 15th is out,
Correct.
okay,
Just the 16th.
got
So
it.
one or the other. And then
And March 25th is in?
waiting
I
on
think we
Julie.
need that meeting
I-
on 25th.
If you can't come.
I-
then-
Well, one.
Are we getting
I still
bodyguard
have
for
a
spring break?
student in high school and it's a lot of traveling. spring break.
That's the
Bring that
kids.
to the whole
That's
weekend.
damn-
I
Will
mean,
not be here.
So the 25th, we
Okay.
will
Carry on.
enjoy with your spring break
Sorry.
without you.
What, is there a meeting on the 25th?
March
Saturday, we got
25th.
that one. So February 12th, March 4th, March 25th, and April 16th
Correct.
are the
Okay,
days
great.
that are set.
Marshall will be very happy.
And April the 16th.
Yep.
We hope to be
Final
doing
report.
final report. So the
And then vote
25th is the
ourselves out of
last thing.
office.
So the
And then we
25th.
vote ourselves out of office.
No, we're not done yet.
Okay,
Wait,
So,
so besides March 25th, are we,
The 16th.
we're taking this?
Are you ready for a
April
motion?
16th.
April 16th, yes.
okay,
Is it my turn to make a
George.
motion?
Not yet.
No?
Not yet.
I'm confident of it here.
so I just wanna say,
You're a mess.
so here's what we think will go on the next agenda.
Okay.
We're bringing back from today 2.01, the method, consistent with the method of the election, consistent with the comments of today's meeting. 2.02, the consecutive term limit. We have to tweak that a little bit to bring it back to reflect your comments today. 2.03, the gift restriction, the further restricting. The Article 5 Geo bond issue that George is referencing. The Section 103 FAR, would that be on the next agenda?
The next agenda.
Okay, and then we have Bill of Rights, which
It's
probably,
not FAR, it's the sale of land.
Sale of land, but we have to bring that separate, well, hold on,
okay, so that's 103, but that'll go in the next
yes.
meeting. And that will be for February 12th, and then for March 4th will be,
We'll work on the agendas because we've got. We're still pending the Bill of Rights.
That's
I was
next.
just gonna say that we could do Bill of Rights on March 4th. So we can
With the
finish
rest.
today's issues at the next meeting. Yeah,
We've got remedies to that as
yeah,
well.
yeah,
So no
and
Bill
we,
of Rights next week,
pretty much.
Bill of Rights in March.
Actually, no, let's try to get the. Let's talk separately on the agenda, because if. These three that we've worked on several times now, those should be quick votes. We
You
should
mean,
not be-
okay, yeah,
Yeah, the method, the lifetime ban and the gifts.
Yeah.
We should be ready to vote on those. So the geo bond thing alone ain't gonna be a full meeting. And the sale of land is a ready to vote thing too. So I'd like to bring at least the beginnings of the conversation on the Bill of Rights at the February 12th agenda.
Okay.
Yeah.
Honestly, the sooner we start the Bill of Rights, probably the better.
Yes.
Yeah.
We can continue it but we need to get going on that. And that'll fill that.
Yes.
Because these are other, should be quick
Okay.
items.
I move we adjourn.
I have to do a public comment. Anybody in public comment?
And no one in Zoom with their hand raised.
Okay, then now you're ready.
I move we adjourn.
Good, you stayed.
That was hilarious. That was great.
Nicholas,
Everybody have a good night.
Friday.
Good night.
Good night.
MBU meeting, a new member was asking, so,
Hold on, I'm sorry. Give me one moment. Let me turn off. Really slow enough, I guess.
Um,
Yeah, I got it. Thank you.